Welcome to Change and Triumph. We are back with the infamous Todd Palmer, who has awards, several books, and an amazing coaching practice that I will let him tell you all about. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. Who were you before anyone called you a best-selling author or an extraordinary advisor?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, before all that, before all our Inc. 5000 awards and all that fun success, I was a kid who grew up on a farm. And I had 42 kids in my graduating class. Recently just went to my 40th high school reunion, and 24 or something like that of us actually showed up. It was really interesting to see how everybody's life turned out.
Congratulations.
I was not the valedictorian of the class. I was not the most popular. I was not the voted most likely to succeed. But I think I was that kid who always was trying to prove something to either to others or to myself, that I could do things and that I had good ideas and that I could make an impact in the world. And I guess 40 years later, after graduating high school, I think, it turned out pretty good.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what happened when you were 5 years old?
That's a great question too. I know when we talked last time, we talked about, I'm working on my next book. It's called Traumapreneur. And the book puts out the premise that the trauma of your life dictates the way you run your company and impacts the way you run your life. And at 5 years old, I had a very traumatic experience. At 5 years old, my father passed away. And at 5 years old, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I had my dad, I had my mother, I had my brother, and I had my sister. And within 90 days, my mom had to go to work to take care of me. It totally makes sense. My brother got an athletic scholarship, went from Michigan to Kentucky. My older sister was getting married. She moved from Michigan to Arizona, and my dad was gone. So within 90 days, my entire nuclear family had moved on to other things, and I was no longer the center focus of life. I became unlovable. I
Mm,
became abandoned, because if you loved me, you wouldn't have left me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have died. If you loved me, you wouldn't have gone to college. If you loved me, you wouldn't have moved away, or you wouldn't have gone to work. Through the processing through the lens of a 5-year-old, well, as an adult, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That, I'm a parent. People listening to this show are probably parents. You've got to take care of your children. That's what my mom needed to do, but I didn't know how to process it. And then,
right.
I go to my dad's funeral, and my brother's out of the house, and nice relatives, well-meaning folks said, "Oh, look at you, little man. Now you're the man of the household. No pressure at 5." It's like,
Mm,
holy cow. So at 5 years old, my family had an irrevocable change, and it shaped the way I saw the world, because then I decided, I can't rely on people to be around me. The person I can rely upon is me, which, if you think about it through the lens of becoming a startup entrepreneur, it's not necessarily awful, because your HR, your sales, your accounting, your operations, self-reliance as an early startup entrepreneur really served me well until I tried to scale my business. And when I tried to scale my business, because of those trust issues and those fears of being abandoned by others, it really impacted the way I led my company, and it glass ceiling to me for a while, and it stunted the growth of the organization.
my goodness. I mean, you just went from 5 all the way fast forward, but there was another trauma that you spoke about, which is that little itty bitty committee. Oh,
Sure, yeah. I call it the itty bitty shitty committee. I talked about it in my last book, From Suck to Success, and it's the internal dialogue we have. And internal dialogue typically is not our biggest cheerleader; it's often our biggest detractor. And my brother, went to college on an athletic scholarship. From there, he was able to create a business career through effort, hard work, intelligence, and I think a little bit of luck as well. I think we all have to recognize luck as a factor. And he ended up working for some big companies. He ended up becoming CEO of a publicly held Fortune 500 company, and at age 49 sold that company and essentially could retire. And he
wow.
was in the staffing industry. I was in the staffing industry, and I'm crashing my company, and he's exiting his to
Mm,
the point of where he doesn't need to work. And since he's retired at 49, he's going to be 70 this year. He's the largest buyer and seller of healthcare staffing companies in the world. So he's had a second career, and
my
I'm
goodness.
crashing my business. I'm not feeling very good about myself. And the number one expert in the world to help me fix my little company was my older brother. And I had to swallow my pride. And I actually hired my older brother as my first coach. Listeners might be thinking, well, gosh, he's your brother. Shouldn't he help you for free? Now, he offered to. Credit to him. I wouldn't take the help for free,
Okay.
because I knew that I wouldn't listen to him, because he's my older brother, and he's, in my mind, I'm competitive with him, which was absolutely nonsense. So I ended up paying him a
Mm,
sizable amount of money every month to help me fix things, because that's the only way I would take advice and take counsel from literally would be argued one of the world's leading experts in the category of my business.
My goodness. Egos are
A
always
little
getting in the
bit,
way.
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
My goodness. So you were just 60 days from running out of money? Take us take
Yeah,
us
so
to that
I started
season.
that company. Yeah, I started that company, Diversified Industrial Staffing, in 1997, and from 97 to '06, we had a really good run. 6, we lost some big counts. We had clients go bankrupt on us. The business went from profitable to very unprofitable in about a year, and we became $600,000 in debt. I was 60
Mm.
days away from running out of all of my money, and the bank called my line of credit and said, "You need to start paying us off." I said, "I don't have any money. Here's my financials." And they said, "Well, you have a personal guarantee. Your personal guarantee, you pledged your home that you and your son live in." I was a single parent. So we're going to
Ouch.
begin exercising our claim on that home, and we're going to get as much money out of you as we possibly can. And that was because I wasn't managing the company effectively. I gave my payment terms were way too long. My margins weren't strong. And I had the mistake of early success. And I was making a lot of money for about a 4 or 5 year period. So I thought I had it figured out. But I never really learned the proper business processes. I didn't learn the proper financial disciplines in running an organization. And I really didn't hold others accountable because I wasn't holding myself accountable to making sure the business was successful long term because I just didn't know what I didn't know. So when I hired my brother, he came and he's like, "I can't believe you made it this far because you really don't have a lot of systems and processes. You don't
Mm.
hold people accountable because, my story I told myself in my itty bitty shitty communities, if I hold you accountable, well, you're not going to like it. And then you're going to quit and I'm going to have nobody to work here and all this different, trauma coming through in the way I ran the company." And so my brother Greg helped me really figure out is here are the proper systems and run. Here's the proper margins to run your business on. Here's the proper ways to negotiate your contracts. All the things that I was winging for a decade and having success. So the success covered up the inefficiencies. And then once the success went away, the inefficiencies rose to the top and it wasn't sustainable. Thank goodness. Talk about pride and ego. I put a little bit of it aside and asked for help.
You mentioned something really interesting just now. You said, unfortunately, you had a lot of early success. What can that do to a new entrepreneur when they have early success? And I think we just came out of a season where, especially in real estate, where we had a lot of early success with very low interest rates. It's kind of like if you were in the internet business and you had a lot of early success, like you were Mark Zuckerberg, you had that early success and then you crashed and burned and you didn't survive. What's the mistake that most entrepreneurs make with that early success and how can they avoid it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my earliest success, I was convinced I knew what I was doing. So it's like the bank account was justifying the ego in the story I was telling myself. So that's the first problem. Second problem is if you have a lot of profits, and you're making good money, we think we're smarter than we really are. And then we think, oh, I can go start another business or I can be an investor in this company. And I can be the next Richard Branson. And if you read Richard's story, like he made a lot of mistakes before he figured it out. We will often just co-sign our own BS about how smart we think we are and how talented we think we are. When the reality is I was super, super lucky. I started my company in 97. I live in Detroit. The unemployment rate was under 4%. I have a staffing company. So there was a lot of jobs and not enough people. If I could get the people,
Mm,
I could get them placed and I could make money. Well, that model's great when the economy's in your favor. Well, when we went from in '06 about an unemployment rate of about 4%. During the recession, Detroit got to 14%. So what you don't need is
mm,
a recruiter. You don't need a recruiting company because there
no,
are plenty of people for there and there's not enough jobs. And, it's
right,
like, well, I didn't know. I couldn't believe that happened to me. Early success feeds the ego, and there's no checks and balances because then the banks will loan you money. But your friends think you are successful. You can go out and buy a house or get a nice car or do those kind of things. And I didn't come from money. My parents were auto workers. My brother was the first one to go to college, and he went to college because he got an athletic scholarship, not because we had a lot of money to pay for him to go to college.
right.
And so, the early success can be both a blessing because I was able to buy a home for my son and take care of that. But it was also a curse because it told me or it was giving me the message. I was smarter than I really was and more successful than I really was. And I had more figured out than I really did.
Right, right. What's the solution? How are you on a pedestal and and everything looks good and everything looks great around you? Now, in my book, The Buy Income Strategy, I actually try and address it. My answer is more financial planning. It's like take your income while you're making it and buy income with it that is completely diversified and, across many uncorrelated industries following Ray Dalio. What have you taught people? And if you could give it away a little bit, if it's possible, to do when they're in that moment. I mean, because all of us, I think that moment comes around regularly. It's cycles, the Fibonacci pattern of the universe, like it's going to happen. You can either come in as an entrepreneur in the right space, in the right business, and make a bunch of money. But inevitably, if you didn't exit at the right time, if you didn't do this, if you didn't do that, a divorce, something happens, who knows? Something happens and then you don't get to continue that path for 60 years. So what do we do?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to recognize that to be a successful entrepreneur, I saw a data point recently where it said, if you're to start a company here in 2025, 2026, your success ratio is about 20%, meaning your failure rate's about 80%. So it's to recognize that you're playing a game or you're entering into a career path that has a high likelihood of not turning out. So it's like, getting married, 50% failure ratio. So you recognize that. And then, so how do you hedge your bets? Different,
Right.
no different than investing in real estate. I always think of real estate, and I'm not a real estate investor, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but I was thinking location, 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 timing, timing, timing. How do you make those two things come together? And so if you're going to start a company, know your risk tolerance. I had a very high risk tolerance. I could scale up, I could scale down, I could go without. I would just do those behavior patterns and understand that it's a margin play, not a revenue play. At least for most of my clients, we talk a lot about what is your margin. Focus on your margin, not your revenue, because you can literally grow out of business as well if you take on too much too soon and you're undercapitalized. Know your margins, know your days outstanding, watch your numbers. Like if I was going to say anything to a startup entrepreneur, know your numbers, know your margins, what they should be for your industry. Watch your days outstanding for your receivables. Know what your profit per full-time employee is. Just some of the basics. When I started, there wasn't classes on entrepreneurship at your community college or at your university. Vern Harnish hadn't even written the Rockefeller Habits yet. Gino Wickman hadn't written
Right.
Traction. So all the stuff that entrepreneurs have now wasn't even available to us. So I would say, know your numbers, go out and get educated. If you can, hire a coach. If you can, take classes. If you can, join EO, go to the EO Accelerator program. Have people teach you things to minimize your downside, because just because you have a great idea or you've got high risk tolerance or you've got some cash to spend to start a company doesn't mean you know what you're doing. I met a guy last night. He's got a successful company and he just went into the restaurant industry, which has the highest failure rate of any type of industry for an entrepreneur to get into. And I said, well, why did you do it? He was like, well, my wife wanted to. That was his motivator. I'm like, oh goodness. Have you ever run a restaurant? No. Do you know your cost of food? No. Do you know this? No. A lot of no's. The more I asked him, the more uncomfortable he got. But he goes, yeah, but I've run this other business. Well, his other business is a retail store, not a restaurant. His other business has high margins. Restaurants don't. I'm like, just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at another. Just because you're a really good employee doesn't mean you're going to be a really good entrepreneur. So get educated, know your numbers, and know your risk tolerance.
Now, you've had such a great career and so many experiences that you share with people that hire you as a coach now. So, do you only work with people that are startups, or do you also work with entrepreneurs that are in the, say, lower middle market doing at least 5 million in EBITDA? Wouldn't
Yeah,
your
I
advice to
work.
that person, I'm wondering about the advice to the startup
Sure.
versus the advice to the lower middle market guy?
Yeah, I've worked with companies as low as $800,000 in revenue, and I've got a client right now who does $103 million in revenue, and kind of anything in
Wow.
between. Because a coaching relationship is a trust relationship, so they got to trust me that I'm going to be able to value to them. And a
Of
lot of the
course.
work that we look at is how you show up, like as the entrepreneur. What drives you? What's your purpose? What's your dream? What's your vision? Also, what's your trauma? What's holding you back? What's keeping you from being more successful? Once we figure out who you are as a human being, then we can look at and see how you show up as the entrepreneur. If you're an early stage startup, I would say 800,000 to about 5 million in revenue. We're going to look at the business in a very different way than if you've got Like I've got a client, he does 40 million. He's the chairman now. He's got a president. He's got a COO. He's got a CFO. He's got a C-suite of leadership team. So his skills need to evolve around leadership. When you're a $800,000 to $3 million company, your skills are often tied around management, which are different than leadership, in understanding that what we have to grow in the entrepreneurs, as you grow your revenue, as you grow the complexities of the business, can you grow from being the manager to being the leader? Can you work on holding people accountable? Can you understand that while you get the joy sometimes of being the doer in the company, can you go from being the doer to the leader? And that's a different set of skills. And oftentimes the biggest struggle is to say, instead of saying, step aside, I'll just do it myself. It'll just get done quicker. Saying, whoa, wait a minute. I can jump in and do it, but I need to learn how to teach you how to do it. And in teaching you, once you learn how to do it, I need to audit that you're doing it successfully. And then I need to make sure there's a repeatable system. So I've got to bring processes and systems. Entrepreneurs, often get fired up and get the dopamine hit of the magic of their own essence. Look at me, I can do something, which is awesome until it's not. I had that. As I tried to scale my companies, I would run into these glass ceilings because I would just jump in and do things for people. Then I realized, looking at my ego, I can teach this, but there are better teachers of how to sell, how to recruit. So I would hire these teachers to teach my staff. I would get the accountability metrics, and then we would talk about them every single day. So my job went from being the wow person to make magic happen to being the disciplined person to have systems and processes followed by all, and being able to then pour myself into the success of other people.
That's awesome. I'm going to drill you again about the same conversation. What do you say to that lower middle market company that's doing 40 million, 120 million? What does that person need to know, not to have the ego to feel like they don't need to change their business model or look at the next thing? Like, how do you not be Blockbuster and let Netflix just take the market?
Yeah, good old Blockbuster. They really should have bought Netflix.
Okay.
So part of it is recognizing that change is always going to be there. We got AI right now. It's changing literally nearly every industry I run into, whether you're manufacturing, whether you're digital marketing, whether you're in the restaurant retail world, because how do they market their restaurants? They use AI, different things like that. It's to recognize that change is constant. So as the entrepreneur, you are responsible and you're the steward of the organization. So you've got to be out there talking to other entrepreneurs. You've got to be reading things. You've got to receive mentorship or coaching so that you can pivot in the marketplace, because the marketplace is inevitably going to change. Going back to your comment about Blockbuster never thought that we would be streaming. I couldn't tell you the last time I picked up a DVD or a video to watch, because everything's online now. Now there's these services where you can take your DVDs and videos and get it uploaded, and you can go stream it off your own private platform. So the world has significantly changed, and we as the entrepreneur have a responsibility to understand that. So one of those things too, like a lot of entrepreneurs will isolate and they'll silo themselves, or a lot of entrepreneurs are friends from high school or college or from jobs. Go become friends with other entrepreneurs. The 5 people you spend time with are really the 5 people that can give you new ideas and give you new concepts, or you can hear their stories of struggle or success. You can see yourself in those stories and you can make adjustments and changes going forward. Nothing wrong with having friends from high school or college. I don't want to get people confused, but go join an EO, go join a Vistage type of group where there's other successful entrepreneurs, and you can learn through their experiences versus just isolating yourself and only listening to podcasts, for example.
I love that you gave some examples, because I've never heard of Vistage or the other one you just mentioned. So I'm grateful for those referrals. That sounds fantastic. It's so funny because you just don't know what you don't know. And there's so much out there that you could find to help you as an entrepreneur or as a business if you know the right people. That's where getting a mentor or coach does help out a lot, because you know where all those places are. So tell me about what you feel the biggest mistake you made before becoming who you are now would be.
Yeah, the biggest mistake I made in my life as a single parent is when the business was crashing and I having to work a ton of hours, and I'm working with my coach, and I revamped my company in September 9th of 2006. I fired the entire company and started over and had to reset the entire organization. So I was working a ton. And my son got the message through my behaviors and he processed it. My behaviors were part of it, and also his processing was part of it, that I loved my business more than I loved him, which wasn't true. I was trying to keep a roof over our head, and I was intense about it, and was probably a little crabby once in a while. Okay, I was probably crabby a lot. And so he got the message that I loved my business more than I loved him. So he decided to cut ties with me. He moved from Michigan to California and didn't speak to me for almost 3 years. And I was devastated because I'm literally telling myself, like, I fought hard to get custody of you. I'm raising you by myself, doing the best I can with what I know. I felt hurt and I felt attacked. What I didn't understand, he was also hurting, and he had also felt like I wasn't the father he needed me to be. And so when I hired my second coach, Dr. Friedland, he pointed out to me things I didn't like that I am the cause of and the solution to all of my problems. And I'm getting exactly what I put out into the world, and that my son isn't going to change until I change me first. Because I thought, okay, well, Dr. Danny, go talk to my kid, explain these things to him, and he'll come around, and he'll come around, and he'll come around. Well, he wasn't coming around. So I had to change me in order to change the relationship with him. And I had to admit my mistakes and lean into the discomfort and be vulnerable and create an energetic change within me, create a behavioral change within me to then reconnect with him, to make it psychologically safe for him to want to be in my space, which, knock on wood, successfully, we were able to work through that. And now he's moved back from California to Michigan. He just bought his first company. He's crazy as it sounds from a kid. He's like, oh my God, I live with a crazy entrepreneur. I'm never going to do that. He just bought his first company. He's a CPA. He bought his first CPA practice. And
Fantastic.
to his credit, he is crushing it. He is absolutely successful out of the gate. He's very coachable. He's putting in the proper processes and systems. He's still a lot of the doer, but I can see a world very quickly where he's going to go from being the doer to being the leader. And he's going to bring people in. He's going to realize what he's really good at. And he's going to set himself up, he and his family, for a long career and possibly, who knows, maybe one day even generational wealth.
Wonderful. That is so exciting. That's like,
It is exciting.
man, it's so weird how our children, I always tell, I'm sure you've said this, when you get older, you'll understand.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And it's like, when you're younger, you just don't understand. And then if you watch the kids as they get older, okay, you're 25 now. You actually understand what I was saying back then, 10 years ago. Then, oh, you're 35 now. Okay, now you get it. Now you might actually get it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The learning never ends.
It never ends. And your core line is, you are the cause of and the solution to every problem in your life. When did you stop arguing with that and start living it?
Oh, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that one. So I do my best to live it. There are some days when I do think the world is my enemy. So I'm not perfect on it. So I used to go through some cycles when I was working with Dr. Friedland where, I was the victim, or I was the martyr, and things that happened to me versus things happening for me. And what he taught me from a brain science perspective is, when we are the victim or the martyr, we're actually living in the least functioning part of our brain. We're actually living in our amygdala, which is designed to keep us safe. And the reality is, we're probably safe. We're not going to get eaten by dinosaurs. Or we're not going to, have those kind of awful things happen to our reptile brain our brain is thinking. And so when we continue to rapidly reinforce that, all that does is go to a thing called cognitive negative bias. And that was often how I saw the world. In now recognizing that, the reframing becomes, this is happening for me, not to me, and I am the cause and the solution to my problems. And I can apply it to anything that happens. It's how I take something in. It's how I process what happens. I had this debate one time with a really good friend of mine, and we were going back and forth. And I said, I guess I can see a situation where if I'm in a car accident and I'm following the rules of the road, and I'm, going the proper speed limit, and I'm using my turn signal, and I'm not driving distracted, and I get into a car accident because someone goes through the intersection when I have the right of way and they hit me, that really didn't happen for me, not to me. I am really not the cause and the solution to that problem. And he was so good. He was like, I disagree. He goes, you chose that day, you chose that car, you chose that route, and you chose to be at that intersection when that other car blew through. So you have a big responsibility there. And then you choose on how you react through that, how you respond to that other driver. And I'm like,
Wow.
ooh, checkmate. Yeah, pretty much.
Checkmate for sure.
And then,
My
you know,
goodness.
a bigger lesson, we're coming out of COVID, and I'm really concerned about, not speaking, and it's hard to get out in the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my coach, Dr. Danny Friedland, who I worked with after Greg, I worked with Greg for 7 years and Danny for 8. And I still have a coach today. It's just Danny, unfortunately, as the story will indicate, passed away. So Danny taught me that everything happens for you, not to you. Danny was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And as a neuroscientist and as a brain surgeon, he knew what that meant. He knew his timeline on this earth was shortened significantly. And I remember when he called to tell me that I'll be transitioning soon. And I said, how are you so buoyant about knowing you're going to be dying? You know that you're dying soon. He's like, well, I've just decided that the rest of my life will be the best of my life and that this is all happening for me, not to me. And he asked me to help him with some content and things like that. In an 11-month period from the time he was diagnosed until the time he left us, he put out over 180 pieces of content on YouTube teaching people how to die and teaching their families how to lose a loved one. So if someone can take brain cancer and it's happened for you, not to you, and if they can make brain cancer, they can be the cause and the solution to dealing with it. He can't get rid of the cancer, but he can deal with it and process it in the best way possible so that his wife and his 2 young sons and the world is a better place because of this experience. I remember when he was passing away, he was so joyous. He's like, he goes, I know where I'm going. And the rest of my life has been the best of my life. I don't want to go, but I'm going with peace. I mean, yeah, you can't
That
beat that.
is phenomenal. I've got chills. That is like, wow. Oh my goodness. Talk about Danny and how you met him.
Well, Danny, again, there's so much in life is just right place, right time, lucky. I was at a conference at MIT and he was one of the keynote speakers and he didn't know where he was going. We were staying offsite at a hotel and there was a message in the group chat about, hey, if you see this guy, he's our speaker. Could someone please give him a ride? No one coordinated ahead of time. So I'm in the lobby and this guy's looking around for a ride. This is before Uber. And I said, hey, are you Dr. Friedland? Yeah. I said, I'm going to the conference. Would you like a ride? He'd like a ride with me. And he was so excited to come talk at the conference. But he was also asking me a million questions. He's the most curious person I've ever met, asking me millions of questions about me and my business and where I was at and why I was at the conference and what this is all going to be about. And I said, well, what are you speaking on? He goes, I'm speaking on the power of the mind and how we are the cause and the solution to all of our problems. Mind you, inside of me, I'm sitting with the guilt of my business is dying, my kid's not talking to me, and all this is happening to me, and I'm such a victim. So he gets up and talks, and he was able to architect out the way his program works of how we move through our systems. And as human beings, we are somewhere between reactivity and creativity and how we work through, I called it his 4 and 4 framework of recognizing the reactivity, reappraising the stress and self-doubt that goes with that, and then cultivating a creative solution to those problems, and then iterating through that and how this model of the active learning cycle can help us solve any problem. And you don't need therapy to get healed. And you can do all these different kind of things. All these great stories. And he gets a standing ovation and he's coming up the aisle and he stops at my seat. I'm sitting on the aisle. He's like, what did you think? And I'm like, I go, you're amazing. I go, do you need a ride back? He goes, yeah. So he goes and he signs his books and talks to people and things like this. So about 3 hours later, he finds me. He's like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the hotel. So we get in the car and I said, I don't know what you charge. You're amazing. I can't afford you. I have no money, but you're my new coach. And he's like, I've never been approached that way. I go, I do have enough money. Can I buy you a drink at the hotel? He's like, sure. So we're sitting there talking through it. And he just really digs into what my life was like. And we spent like an hour together. I told him about my son. I wanted him to work with my son. He said, you know what? I'm happy to work with you on the biggest problem in your life. And I said, well, the biggest problem in my life is I don't know if I'm going to sell my business. What am I going to do with the company? I'm not sure I'm going to be able to save it, yada, yada, yada. He's like, no. Your biggest problem is this thing with your kid. So if you want to work on that, and you want to grow as a human being around that, I will work with you. I have no interest in helping you fix your company. You'll figure that out. You just had a coach for that. You're basically, I think we'd been on the Inc. 5000 at that point, like 4 or 5 times. We ended up making it 6. He's like, you're
Wow.
fine on that. He goes, you need to fix you. You're a mess. And I'm like, I'm not used to being talked to that way. Do you not know who I think I am? Going back to Pride, Nika. and I said, all right, I will work on that. My next book is going to be dedicated to Dr. Friedland because the man literally changed my life. Because he was able to help me get out of my own way. He was able to help me clear out the stories I tell myself through my itty bitty shitty committee. He was able to help me repair the relationship with my son. And most importantly, he was able to help me repair the relationship with myself, helping me exit as a CEO, go help and coach other CEOs, go speak from stage, do workshops to live up to my purpose in life, which is to impact lives and improve lives. So because of him, I'm now able to talk to people like you, appear on shows like this, and go into the world to make it a better place because of this guy.
Amazing. I wish I had met him. Now I'm going to have to go look up all of his videos and everything
Yes,
about him.
please do.
This is
Please
just
do.
amazing. So AI, we touched on it earlier and we even touched on this subject already. What do you do with all of this change? And you even have a client that is cutting headcount right now from 60 to 20
Yes.
using AI and while holding revenue. And
Yes.
you call the result owner's guilt. So this is what's happening. Now, I had a
Yes.
conversation. One of my podcast guests told me, and I didn't look it up yet, but you probably heard about this. One of the auto companies cut 300 employees for AI, and then they realized they need to go and hire more people. So you've got all this happening with AI. How do you coach a leader through the emotional weight of all of these decisions that have to be made right now?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I have a client. A lot of the business is based on what are called redundancies. It's the same work over and over and over again for multiple clients. And he connected with another client of mine who's an AI CEO, and they're putting in these systems and these links and these agents to reduce take the redundancy out of the company. So by removing the redundancy, it reduces the need for headcount. So they predict they're going to go from 60 employees to 20 in about 2 years. So we'll see how that goes. But then with my client who's going to reduce the headcount, he's like, wow, he does about 11 or $12 million a year. And he's like, yeah, we're going to be able to maintain the client count. So the work product produced by our organization will be at the same level or even a higher level because we're removing human error. So they don't anticipate losing clients. And I said, well, those dollars saved are money that'll fall right to the bottom for you and your business partners. And he goes, I feel really weird about that because people are going to be displaced because we're going to get rid of the redundant jobs and I'm going to actually make more money off of that. And I kind of feel guilty about it. And so we're spending more and more time working him through that about why did he get into business? What was he hoping to accomplish? What personal financial goals does he have? He's taken a lot of risk to keep this company going. It's had good years and bad years, highs and lows. That risk has a value, and the work they do has a value to the customer. It's going back to even the automotives back in the day. My parents were automotive workers. Well, robots took a lot of those jobs because they couldn't find enough people to do the work. If you think about, my background in recruiting, I still watch some of the numbers. As of today, there's still 9 million unfilled jobs in America. And we have the lowest labor participation rate, I think, in the last 56 to 57 years. So there's jobs out there and there's not enough people for them. So companies do need to take a look at alternative sources. Automotives using robots back in the day and still using. Companies like my
Yeah.
client reducing their headcount. So AI is just another tool. And just like back when the automotive workers were replaced by robots, those workers had to go get other skills and other things. So there's going to be displacement of certain people in certain categories, unfortunately. But those people will also get hopefully the opportunity for different types of training. A buddy of mine, he left his job. This is the craziest thing. He left his job and he's become an Uber Eats driver and DoorDash driver. He's actually making more money doing that than when he had a full-time 40-hour-a-week
Interesting.
job. He's a single dad. He can work around his kids' schedules. Now, he has to work some weird hours, but he's like, I'm making more money doing this. Never would have guessed it. So if you want to, I argue, if you want to work, there will be jobs out there. It may not be the job you currently have had. I get that, and I understand that. There's this thing called Harvey AI. Harvey AI is an AI platform for the legal profession that is replacing and reducing the need for entry-level attorneys and entry-level paralegals. So all different
Wow.
industries and categories are being impacted by AI.
Walk us through your active learning cycle.
Yes, absolutely. So it's at the end of every chapter of my last book, From Suck to Success. It's based off of and giving credit to Dr. Friedland and his 4 and 4 framework. But basically, it's a 4-step process of an iterative looping cycle that creates momentum to solve any problem. So the example I always give is my example. The problem is I'm $600,000 in debt. That's step 1. Identify the problem. Step 2 is create or recognize that we have an intention, not an expectation of solving that problem. We create an intention because an intention comes from the prefrontal cortex, which is the supercomputer in our brain. An expectation lives in our amygdala, which is win or lose, good or bad, right or wrong. That keeps us more stuck. So I want to solve this debt problem of being $600,000 in debt. I want to solve it. I didn't like my bank wanted to know, well, when are you going to solve it by? Then we're going to solve now. I want to solve it. So what I'm going to do, step 3 is I'm going to create a strategy around that intention. So, diversified, we would create all different types of marketing campaigns and all different types of sales opportunities and sales contests just to get our message out to the communities of places. We've worked with skilled trades manufacturing. So we created a lot of different programs. Then we would get feedback. That's step 4. So in step 4, we get feedback, what works and what doesn't. So the problem is $600,000 in debt. The intention, not the expectation, is to get out of it. Step 3 is to create strategies around that intention. And step 4 is to get feedback. And in the feedback, you keep the intent, you keep the strategies that work, and you discard the ones that do not work. And you just loop on that, and you iterate and you iterate and you iterate until the problem gets solved.
That is wonderful. Thank you for the lesson. I'm so happy for this coaching session right now because I just got a whole lot out of that. So you said what separates people.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So you said what separates people who survive change from those who get swallowed by it is the willingness to take action after hitting rock bottom. So what's the smallest action that really counts besides what you just told us?
Wow. So the smallest action that really counts is often 2 things come to mind. So the smallest action when you hit rock bottom is 2 things. 1, recognizing that you've hit rock bottom. It's an awareness. Where your awareness goes, your energy flows. So you're aware that we've hit rock bottom. And the second action, which I think is the most important action once you hit an awareness, is to reach out and ask for help. It's just to recognize that there's a lot of information in this world. There's a lot of people that will help you. If you can't afford to hire someone like me as a coach for whatever reason, go out and get my book. My book's $15. In fact, if anybody who's on the show, here's the show today, you want a free copy of my book, just email me at todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. I'll pay the shipping and I'll just give you the book. Like that, I believe in a world of abundance.
Now, which book is that? Which book is that? Is that Suck to Success?
That's from Suck to Success. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you've hit rock, you realize you don't have to do it alone. So many of us will silo and isolate. And what I argue is we wrap ourselves in this cloak of shame, guilt, and embarrassment. And we say, I suck, I screwed up, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough. Why would anybody help me? I'm just a loser. I used to say that. I would drop a lot of F-bombs in there about how effed up I am and what an effing loser I am and yada, yada, yada. It's a matter of recognizing that as human beings, as entrepreneurs, we can bring value. It's to recognize that we don't need to do it alone and to get the help. And then on the counsel we receive, and the idea is then to take action, use the active learning cycle, take a lot of small steps. And the simple step is, okay, what's not working for me today is I'm not getting out of bed. My intention, not my expectation, is that I'm going to get out of bed. My strategy is to put my feet on the floor. Okay, I put my feet on the floor. Now I'm going to stand up. My feedback is, hey, this is better than just being prone all day. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to go get up and just do the small things. I talk about this in the military. God, McChrystal's got this great video where he talks about every morning, start your day with making your bed. Have that one success. Then go into brushing your teeth and have that one success and do something positive. Because there will be negatives that come in and hit you. Happens to everybody. The most successful people have bad days. We got to do those things to reframe our patterns, reframe our internal dialogues so that we can go out there and be successful. Maybe it's being an entrepreneur. Maybe it's being a parent. Maybe it's being a spouse. Maybe it's being a son or a daughter. You can be successful anywhere if you look for those opportunities.
Todd, I am so excited that you just offered your books Up to Success for free to our listeners. So check the show notes for Todd's email. It'll be right there. And you can also, of course, go and buy it. But the new book is coming. Now, Dr. Friedland, before we talk about the new book, Dr. Friedland wrote the foreword to Suck to Success.
He did, right before he passed away. It was such a gift.
Right. Amazing. So what did he heal in you that you now carry to your 26 clients a week?
Wow. He healed within me that no matter what my bank account says, or no matter what clients or say, or my son would say, or my wife would say, or my daughter would say, is I am a worthwhile person. And for so long, I tied my identity and my worth to the success of my company. That was great when it was, profitable, and it was awful when it cratered and I almost lost it. And I had to be careful as the business came out of the ashes and we're getting awards and we're getting recognition and we're solving the debt problem and we're making money again. It is to watch to not I tie my identity to the success of the company because the company could go away tomorrow and I'm still here. And that was the biggest lesson because if we take a look at what is our purpose? My purpose is to improve lives. I can do it anywhere at any time with anyone for a fee or for free. And so if it's not tied to one thing, if my identity is not tied to one thing, my staffing company or my coaching practice or my books, then there's unlimited opportunities to get that experience. And so many entrepreneurs I see, they are their business and their business is them. And it just creates so much dysfunction. So that's the gift he gave me is like, you're worthwhile. You can practice your craft anywhere you go for a fee or for free. You can give it abundantly. And if you give things abundantly, then typically good things happen.
What an amazing answer. And so Traumor? It's coming
It's
out in September or October.
traumapreneur. No,
Trauma
traumapreneur,
Traumapreneur.
preneur.
Got it.
Yeah. September, October.
Awesome, awesome. So thank you so much, Todd. I'm so happy that you joined me today. This has been an extraordinary conversation, and I'm just honored to have you on the show. So this show is called Change and Triumph, looking back at everything you've survived, everything you've learned, and everything you're building right now. What has been your greatest change, and what has been your greatest triumph?
The greatest change and the greatest triumph is reconnecting with my kid. Like that was hard work I had to do. And it's the best work I've ever done. And my kid likes me a lot more. His name is Tyler. My son likes me a lot more, loves me a lot more, I think. But also the real gift is I like me a lot more.
Mm.
I'm a person who approaches life with gratitude, not with expectation. I'm a person who extends appreciation and vulnerability to others versus defensiveness and keeping myself bottled up. I remember my son saying to me a few years ago, he's like, when we were reconnecting, he's like, I got to ask you, who the hell are you? Because you're not my dad. He goes, you're relaxed, you're calm, you're not angry, you're not defensive, you're open, you're accessible, you're vulnerable with me. Who are you? Like, man, it's the best
Aw.
compliment ever.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for being on the show.
I say to clients, if you're the king or the queen of your company, you wear a crown, and heavy is the head that wears the crown. And we often choose to do it in isolation and doing it alone, and we don't have to.
You are speaking to me. Okay.